April 8, 2021. A 21-year-old Cameron Herrin walks into a courtroom knowing the next few minutes will erase everything he ever imagined his future would be. As he stands before the judge, the air feels thick enough to suffocate him. Then the verdict drops. 24 years in prison. No reductions. No leniency. No possible path out. Cameron's face drains of color as the weight of those numbers settles into his bones. But what he didn't know, what nobody in that room truly understood, is that the world waiting for him behind those steel doors would be far more punishing than the sentence itself. Because the moment those prison gates slammed behind him, Cameron didn't just enter a facility. He stepped into a reality designed to break him mentally, physically, and spiritually. And while he disappeared into that world, millions of strangers online refused to look away. Some condemned him, some defended him, some turned him into an obsession. But before we get to that bizarre chaos, you need to understand the tragedy that brought him to this moment. On May 23, 2018, Cameron was street racing at over 100 miles per hour along Tampa's Bayshore Boulevard. What started as a reckless thrill ended in horror when he struck and killed 24-year-old Jessica Reisinger and her 21-month-old daughter, Lilia. In seconds, 2 innocent lives were gone. And the judge made it clear that every year of Cameron's adulthood would be spent paying for that moment. 9 years for Jessica's death, 15 for Lilia's, 24 years total. Consecutive, non-negotiable, final. The judge's gavel came down, and with that single strike, Cameron's old world collapsed. But his new reality, one darker than anything he imagined, was only just beginning. After Cameron's sentencing, he was moved from the courthouse into the custody of the Florida Department of Corrections, where his life shifted from minutes of legal chaos to decades of controlled silence. His first stop was intake, the place where every inmate is stripped of identity, belongings, and any remaining illusion of control. But Cameron's journey didn't end there. Soon after processing, he was transferred to a facility that would define the rest of his young adulthood. The Appalachia Correctional Institution, a medium to close custody prison buried in the rural stretches of North Florida. This wasn't a soft landing. It wasn't a clean, quiet correctional center for first-time offenders. It was a sprawling, razor-wired fortress housing men with violent histories, men who had been incarcerated long enough to understand every unspoken rule of survival, and men who viewed a new inmate like Cameron as easy prey. Dormitory blocks lined with concrete, echoing hallways lit by flickering fluorescence, and the constant clatter of metal doors reminded him that this was not temporary. This was home. And understanding what this home looks like is crucial to understanding what his sentence truly means. From the moment he wakes up, Cameron's life is segmented into rigid, unchanging blocks. Wake-up call before dawn. Count. Mess hall breakfast. Another count. Work or program time. Count again. Short recreation period, then back behind steel doors. Every movement is monitored. Every interaction is watched. Every word can spark conflict. Privacy doesn't exist. Personal space doesn't exist. Even silence can be dangerous if offered in the wrong tone. But what truly separates Cameron from thousands of inmates around him isn't the length of his sentence. It's the bizarre national obsession surrounding his case. Once he arrived in prison, guards and inmates alike already knew who he was. They had seen the TikToks. They had seen the edited videos treating him like a tragic hero. They had seen teenagers online describing him as too handsome for prison or wrongly punished because of his looks. To inmates, this isn't just strange. It's offensive. A man who killed a mother and a baby being treated like a celebrity enrages people who have lived decades behind bars without a single ounce of sympathy from the outside world. In a place where respect is earned through time, toughness, or reputation, being idolized by teenagers online creates a different kind of reputation, one that attracts jealousy, envy, and hostility. And in prison, hostility is not theoretical. It is physical. It is immediate. It is constant. Cameron knows this. He walks hallways knowing he is being watched. Not by fans, but by inmates trying to decide if harming him will elevate their own status. Some inmates see him as weak. Some see him as privileged. Some see him as a way to gain points with gangs. And the more viral videos and fan edits circulate outside, the more dangerous his life becomes inside. Even his daily movements reflect the strain. He sits alone during chow hall because associating with the wrong group creates enemies, but being alone creates vulnerabilities. He keeps his eyes down because looking too confident appears disrespectful and looking too afraid invites predators. He avoids conversations because a single misunderstood word can escalate into violence. But silence, too, is interpreted as arrogance. The monotony of his days intensifies the psychological pressure. Institutional meals, rigid schedules, harsh living quarters. These things wear down even the strongest minds. But for someone who grew up with middle-class comfort, who lived in a world of technology, freedom, and opportunity, the transition is more than shocking. It is suffocating. And beneath the routine lies something far darker: the weight of time. Cameron is 21 when he enters. He will be 45 when he leaves. His 20s gone. His 30s gone. The years people spend building careers, starting families, discovering themselves, forming lifelong relationships. He will spend them repeating the same restricted cycle, surrounded by the same concrete walls, hearing the same metal doors open and slam shut. But this physical confinement is only the first layer. The deeper punishment unfolds inside his mind. Studies show that long sentences cause psychological decay. Panic episodes, emotional numbness, identity erosion, and a distorted perception of time. Days blend into each other until months feel identical. Years bleed together, and eventually, inmates begin losing their sense of self. Cameron feels this happening. He feels the weight of May 23, 2018 every single day. He carries the knowledge that 2 lives were lost because of him, and that a family wakes up every morning missing people he can never bring back. That guilt lives with him in a way no sentence clock can quantify. But there's another layer to this story, one that shapes not just his present but his future. Because even after 24 years, even after serving every day of his sentence, Cameron won't walk out free. He will walk out marked by the internet, by the public, and by his past. When people imagine long-term imprisonment, they often picture the physical environment: bars, uniforms, cold food, locked doors. But Cameron's reality goes far deeper than architecture. The truest cost of a 24-year sentence is the life he won't live. To understand this, you have to understand what time does to a person when every day looks exactly like the one before it. Cameron's 20s and 30s are supposed to be his most formative years. The years people travel, take risks, meet partners, finish degrees, build careers, raise children, and discover who they are. Instead, his development freezes inside a system designed to break him down. Days are predictable to the point of suffocation, and the structure that once felt reassuring now feels like a cage tightening around his identity. Inmates talk about institutional death, a point where a person loses emotional connection to the outside world. They survive, but they no longer live. They function, but they no longer hope. Cameron enters this world as a young adult, but the risk is that he will exit it as a shell of a man who no longer recognizes himself or the world waiting for him. But the psychological burden is only one half of the reality. The other half belongs to the people whose lives his decisions shattered. Jessica Reisinger was only 24. A wife, a mother, a daughter, a woman with dreams still unfolding. Her baby daughter, Lilia, never had the chance to grow up, to speak in full sentences, to go to school, to experience a single milestone. Their futures ended instantly, and the emotional devastation this caused remains immeasurable. Jessica's husband wakes up every day missing the 2 people he loved most in the world. His grief is permanent. Her father, Bob, carries heartbreak that doesn't fade with time. And the rest of the family exists with a wound that will never close. Cameron knows this. No amount of reflection or remorse will ever erase it. This is why the debate about his sentence remains so divided. One side argues that he deserves every second of the 24 years. That reckless, thrill-seeking killed a mother and child. That accountability matters. That justice demands consequences equal to the gravity of the harm caused. They point to his history of speeding, to the danger of street racing, to the undeniable fact that 2 innocent lives were taken. The other side argues that 24 years is too long for someone barely out of high school. That he didn't intend harm. That teenagers process risk differently due to brain development. They believe rehabilitation is more meaningful than prolonged punishment. They see value in giving young offenders a chance at rebuilding their lives. But underneath both arguments lies a truth few discuss. This sentence extends far beyond the 24 years. When Cameron eventually walks out at 45, he enters a world that moved on without him. Technology will have evolved. Society will have changed. People his age will have spouses, careers, homes, and teenage children. He will have none of that. He will be starting from nothing. Finding employment will be a mountain few can climb. Vehicular homicide on a record creates barriers that don't disappear with time. Even if he wants to rebuild, the world may not let him. Housing applications, employment screenings, background checks. Every step will remind him of the past. And then there is the internet. Cameron's case went viral in a way no one could have predicted. His face became a topic of debate. His name became a hashtag. Millions watched clips of him being sentenced, edited with dramatic music or softened lighting. This digital record will never disappear. For the rest of his life, people will recognize him. Some will judge him. Some will romanticize him. But he will never again be anonymous. His sentence doesn't end when the gates open. It follows him forever. This brings us to the central question. Is this punishment worse than death? Execution ends suffering. It ends guilt. It ends time. But Cameron's sentence forces him to live with every consequence. Every regret. Every moment of loss. Every reminder of the lives taken. It forces him to wake up, day after day, in a world without freedom, without progress, without closure. And even after release, he will never escape the shadow of what happened on that day in May 2018. Whether this is justice or excessive punishment is something viewers must decide for themselves. In the end, Cameron's punishment doesn't just exist on paper. It lives inside every hour he spends behind those walls. People still debate whether he feels genuine remorse. He's spoken about regret, written apologies, and claimed he thinks about that day constantly. But no one can ever truly know what exists inside another person's mind. Is he sorrowful because 2 innocent lives were lost? Or because his own life collapsed in an instant? Is he grieving the victims, or grieving the future he destroyed for himself? These questions may never have clear answers, no matter how often they're asked. What we do know is simple. Whatever Cameron feels now does nothing to change the outcome. 2 lives remain gone forever, and he remains locked inside a system that strips nearly everything that once defined him. For the next 2 decades, he will wake up to the same narrow space, the same rigid routine, and the same heavy awareness of the moment that changed everything. He will never return to the carefree person he was before that day, and he will never escape the shadow of what he did. So here's the question you need to consider. Is 24 years of this existence truly justice, or does it drift into something far more unsettling? Does this sentence balance accountability, or does it cross a line we rarely talk about? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And if this breakdown made you think differently about the case, hit like and subscribe, because tomorrow we're unpacking another story that challenges everything you believe about consequences.